Good afternoon, Commissioners. Thank you for the introduction there. It's great to see you all. I just wanted to introduce our Bear team to you today. We've got Dan Gibbs, Janelle Musser, and they've left David Sexton back at home with the Bears in East Tennessee, but he's our third member of the Bear team. They're here to give you, as the director mentioned, a high-level overview of the Bear program and how it's evolved over the last number of years. We're extremely proud of their work, what they've done, and I think you'll see today their innovative thinking and how they've pushed the Bear program forward. So we're looking forward to seeing their talk today. I think Dan will start, and then Janelle will take it from there. So thank you.
Thank you, Joe. On behalf of Janelle, I'd like to thank the Commission for allowing us to speak to you today. And so we're going to go ahead and get right into this. So real quickly, I just want to give you a quick overview of what we're going to talk about today. And I'm just going to talk a little bit about bears in general, give a quick harvest update and look at some of the trends related to harvest. And then Janelle will come up and talk about conflict management, some of the recent accomplishments we've made in regard to addressing conflicts. And then I'll get back up and wrap it up with some of the things we want to do moving forward. So just a real quick history. Pre-European settlement, we had bears throughout the entire state of Tennessee. As the old saying goes, we had bears from Memphis to Mountain City. But bears were exploited to the point that we almost lost them in the state, with just a few remnant populations remaining by the late 1960s. And in 1970, bear hunting was closed in Tennessee up through 1973. And this wasn't going on just in Tennessee. This was going on all throughout the Southeast. And so Tennessee, Georgia, and North Carolina got together and we formed the Tri-State Bear Group to kind of look at some of the issues addressing bears. Two main issues. One was poaching, and the second one was the fact that bears just don't reproduce like deer or turkeys or other species that we're typically used to working with. The females don't even breed till they're 3, maybe 4 years old for the first time, and then they only have cubs every other year. So restoration process takes a lot longer with bears. And incidentally, this group still meets today twice a year, so it's still going strong. 1974, bear hunting was reopened in Tennessee, and we've continued to add more hunting opportunity and add more areas to hunting as warranted. And it's hard to get estimates on species like bears, but our best estimate is that we have around 6,000 bears statewide, and that would include the Great Smoky Mountains National Park. So here's our bear team real quickly. Myself, Janelle here, she is our support biologist, and she's the lead on our conflict management and resolution program. And then David Sexton recently came onto the team as our urban bear manager, which is the Gatlinburg Sevier County position. And then we've recently just hired 2 part-time folks, Bill Stiver and Haley Carr. And Bill's going to take the lead on the Bearwise recognition program, which Janelle will mention a little bit later. And then Haley will be providing field support. And then lastly, our wildlife officers do a tremendous amount of bear response, conflict response, and we certainly couldn't get it done without their help. So here's a map, just a quick map on where we hunt bears in Tennessee. We're hunting in 37 counties. We have 5 primary hunt zones. And last year we had a record harvest of 813. But this year, as of just about 5 minutes ago, we're almost to 400. So we've had a huge drop in harvest this year, but that's not an unusual thing. And you can see here on this map that each year we've had record harvest. We've had pretty significant drops afterwards. And that's just normal highs and lows. And with the mass crop that we've had last year, or this past year, it's not unreasonable to see a big drop like that. But what's key is that you got this long-term increase in harvest. And I just mentioned that the 5-year average was 676. If you go back and look at 2014, at that point, the 5-year average was 420. So we've gone from 420 to 660 in a decade. So when you see these kinds of trends with your harvest, you want to kind of pay attention to what's going on with the population, right? That's pretty heavy harvest. And what we see in 3 of our 5 primary hunt zones, we are harvesting at what would be considered a heavy level. And what that means is we have a high female harvest in the population. We have a lot of older age females being harvested. The percent of the population being harvested is above 19%. So we see these things going on that tell us, hey, population growth is not necessarily as high as some people may think, right? They're seeing more bears, but that doesn't mean that the population is necessarily growing exponentially. And it's okay for populations to be stable as well. I mean, that's not a problem. The reason I show you this chart is just to make the point that we have a lot of hunting pressure on our bears in Tennessee. We kill a lot of bears and we hunt a lot of days, and it works very well. Yet we still have a lot of conflicts. Our conflict calls continue to rise. And this is where Janelle is going to come up and kind of talk about that.
Thanks, Dan. Yeah, so Dan mentioned that our harvest continues to kind of increase, but also that our calls continue to increase. So in 2024, while we had that record harvest, we also had our highest call volume at over 1,700 calls to the agency. And just to note, that's any call about bears. That could be I saw a bear's in my garbage, a bear's injured on the side of the road. It's any time they call. And so there's lots of contributing factors that play into those calls, but one of those that we don't always talk about is our continuing increasing human population. So you can have not more bears, but you add a lot more people to the system, and one bear can contribute to a lot of those calls in an area. It doesn't mean you always have more bears. And with technology now, it's made that even more so, right? People can see bears on their Ring camera that they never knew were in their yard before. Now they know. And so I just wanted to put this in comparison to another state that has actually fewer bears than Tennessee, spread over a bigger area, and that's Florida, where they receive over 7,000 calls a year sometimes, but they have 23 million people. So when you add a lot more people, you get more calls. And so historically, how did we handle all those calls? Well, people would say, come and get your bear. And we did a lot of times because we had fewer bears, we had fewer people, so we had places we could take these animals. And so this is just kind of a quick story time. This was a bear that was moved out of Gatlinburg in August of 2022. And it was moved about 40 miles. And then short of a year later, it was caught about 60 miles from that release site on the Tennessee-North Carolina border in Cott County. And then exactly 2 years later, I captured that bear within a mile of where it was removed from Gatlinburg. And so this bear kind of has a happy story because when it came back to Gatlinburg, it couldn't get in the dumpsters anymore. But recent research has really shown that this is true. Relocation is pretty ineffective. And about 90% of bears that are moved are dead within 4 months. And those 10% that survive continue to cause the same problems and oftentimes make it back where they came from, like that bear did. And it's also really expensive for agencies between time and equipment used and that kind of stuff. And so just kind of a quick analogy, if you think about you're making your morning breakfast and you spill coffee creamer or syrup on your counter and you forget to clean it up. You come home and there's ants all over your counter. So you squash them all or you somehow scoop them all up and you take them outside and you forget again to clean up the spill. The next morning, what happens? You wake up and there's ants all over your counter again. And that's really what relocation for bears is. So this map is a 19 square mile area from a research project, and each one of those colors is a different bear. So that's 37 bears, and that's just what she managed to capture. So removing the bear really doesn't prevent future conflict, and it doesn't help the person experiencing conflict. And so we really wanted to take a step back and say, well, what are these calls? What is happening? Why are people calling about bears? And how can we help? And when we look at that, we see about 25% of our calls are directly related to garbage, with a lot of those other things happening because of garbage. That's kind of where it starts. That's where the bear gets comfortable. That's where the bear starts to feel good around people. And then these other things start to happen. And what are some other contributing factors? Bears are recolonizing their historical range, not just from East Tennessee, but from Kentucky and Arkansas and Mississippi's populations. And like I mentioned before, with technology, they're more visible than ever. This was a recent story out of East Tennessee. That person never would have known that a bear took their chainsaw if they didn't have that Ring camera. Now they know. And so it became national news. And we found from recent research that people really react better if they get an in-person site visit from someone from the agency. That's how you get them to do something like secure their garbage or put that electric fence around their chicken coop. And we have Bearwise, which is the national program that those resources are readily available now for the agency to use and for anyone to direct people to. And we had the opportunity to go out to Montana to the International Human Bear Conflicts Workshop, and we learned we are not alone. The common theme was that agencies have really tried to fix the problem bear. We've tried trapping, we've tried hazing, we've tried depredation permits, increasing harvest, you name it, on the bear side of things. And that's because that's what we have control over as an agency. But it really hasn't moved the needle. It hasn't moved the needle on these calls or really helped the people experiencing conflicts. And we know the cause is attractants. We know the solution is to secure them, and we know it works. So places like Durango and Florida have seen a 60 to 95% reduction in their calls in areas when they put bear-resistant trash cans out. And so the good news is we're on the right track. We've had a lot of recent progress. We've trained all commissioned staff throughout the agency. And we've been offering a lot of on-site technical assistance, like giving out these retrofit kits and loaning equipment like these electric unwelcome mats, just to give people some time to secure their attractants and show them that this stuff works. We've continued to work with local municipalities, which has led to Gatlinburg revamping their dumpsters, Townsend passing a bear-resistant dumpster ordinance, and Kingsport and Pigeon Forge offering bear-resistant trash cans to their residents. And partnering with state and federal agencies like the educational campaign we did with TDOT, and advising and assisting community groups. We co-led a Bearwise workshop in Gatlinburg with the Smokies Bearwise Task Force, and that was really well received. And we have a lot in the works. We're going to work on a media training to get the correct information out there about bears instead of just all these sensationalized stories. And we've identified conflict specialists from our wildlife officers to go through additional training. And we're going to work on our Bearwise recognition program. We're going to work with the public relations to kind of create our own documentary about bears in Tennessee, like this one out of Durango. And we've revamped the license plate that should be available sometime soon as well.
Thank you, Janelle. So I'm going to kind of wrap this up with a couple of things here. And I want to talk just a moment about what I refer to as conflict accelerants. And that are those things that are, despite all of our efforts with underground work and hunting opportunity, continue to cause the number of conflicts to go up. And these are pretty simple. You have human population growth, which Janelle already mentioned, but I think everyone in this room understands what's happening in Tennessee and the number of people that are moving here. And one projection that I've seen for the next turn of the century, they're talking about 14 million people in our state. And, we need to get ready for that now. All the associated housing expansion that goes along with that and the infrastructure causes conflicts to accelerate the loss of habitat, things like that. Increased tourism. Tourism isn't just increasing in Sevier County, it's increasing all over East Tennessee where we have bears, putting more people close to these animals. The hobby farming increases, bees, goats, chickens, things like that. And then Janelle mentioned recolonization of bears to their former range. And then one thing we haven't mentioned is the deer baiting and the new baiting law that will go into effect next year. This will cause bear harvest to increase, and it will also cause conflict costs to increase because bears will go to these bait sites and consume whatever it is the deer hunters are putting out. And you can anticipate illegal harvest associated with that as well. So the key here is that 5 of these 6 things I just identified are all human-related things. There are things that bears are reacting to that we as people are doing. And all these things are going to most likely accelerate the recolonization as well and move these bears into the former range even faster. So it's a human thing that bears are just responding to what we're offering them. So some of our barriers, we got a lot done. We still have barriers. And one of these is the need for mass public education and a mindset change. Janelle mentioned Montana, and we were able on personal time to do a little bit of riding around, and this is something that you would see pretty regular in Montana, bees with electric fence around them. This is a 5-figure investment here when you're talking about all the equipment, the harvest value of the honey, things like that. And this person decided on their own to put up an insurance policy, an electric fence. No one made them do it. They chose to do it. And it's hard to get people in Tennessee to do this. Even when they know they have bears, it's hard to get them to take that step and do that. It's a mindset change. Local government buy-in is huge. Janelle mentioned bear-resistant trash cans. These bear-resistant trash cans that these trucks in this picture can pick up are a game changer. And I've talked to this commission about this before, and you even gave the agency a $250,000 budget to create a cost share program to help cities get a kickstart, for lack of a better word, on purchasing these cans. And after 2 years, we did not get a single application. And that's with a lot of work that we did trying to get people to apply. And we got no interest whatsoever. But they already have these trucks. They just need the cans. So getting local governments to buy in is huge. Bears are highly visible. Everybody wants their video with a bear. And if you live in East Tennessee, you can't go a day without seeing something on social media about a video that someone's posted. So it just keeps it up front all the time. It's just a constant reminder. And then lastly, we haven't talked much about feeding, and we've talked about feeding before, so I won't belabor it. But, it's not the silver bullet having a feeding law, but it's certainly a critical piece of the puzzle. And feeding bears doesn't just happen in Sevier County.
Well, that's Mama right there. The cubs are so big, it looks like a giant pack of bears.
Now, I show you that for a couple of reasons. One, to show that's in Unicoi County, upper East Tennessee. And this gentleman, he puts this bird seed out and the bears consume it. They don't go just lay in the woods and wait for him to come back out at 4 o'clock and throw it out again. They run around the area terrorizing the neighbors, trying to get food from them, breaking doors on buildings. He's risking his own safety as close as he was. You saw his hand. This kind of stuff is going on all over the state, not just in Sevier County. And it's not just tourists, it's residents that are doing it. So it's an issue that we have to deal with, and there's not much we can do about it. So I want to finish with this little illustration here. And a lot of times people they'll describe systems like a three-legged stool, right? Well, I want to use a bridge as an example. So the bridge is what we're trying to support are human-bear conflicts, and we're trying to keep pressure off bear tolerance and public satisfaction. We want people to be satisfied and have a high tolerance of bears. And traditionally, TWRA and most other states have done this, and they've supported this bridge with two pillars, hunting and response. And that works really well when you have a few bears and a few people. And Janelle mentioned that, we used to move bears, and it would work fairly well. But when you start adding more people to the system, all the infrastructure, a few more bears, throw some tourism in there, and now you're getting all this pressure on the center of your bridge, and it's just putting more and more pressure on tolerance and public satisfaction. And, we as an agency, because it's our jurisdiction, we may try to address it with some more hunting opportunity, or we may try to address it by doing a better job of responding, but we're putting more effort into the pillars that are already there, right? They're doing their job. They're holding up the ends. It's the center that needs some help. And what that is, that's attractant management. That's the third leg. And what's nice about attractant management, when you do it right, you can have bears in and around people. It's okay for people to have bears walk through their yard. We tell them that all the time. We just don't want them to find trash while they're walking through your yard. So you can have bears close to people, but the key here is what holds up attractant management. It's not just TWRA. It's federal agencies. It's city governments. It's all the people that live in communities. And this is what we've seen happen in Gatlinburg over the last 2 years. It finally all came together after decades of working. The city bought those dumpsters, and bears do not get in dumpsters in Gatlinburg anymore. And it's amazing to go down there and see the change. But Gatlinburg is not the only place we have bear conflicts. They're all over East Tennessee. So we need more areas doing these types of things that they're doing. And I'll finish with this. This is another one of our little successes that we worked with a group to create this poster here. And what we're trying to do, this is geared towards tourists, but it's also geared towards our residents, that we have to make a decision. Do we want to be on the left side of this scenario, or do we want to be on the right side? It's up to us. Both sides have cost, monetary cost and personal sacrifice. But surveys that we've done in this agency 2 times now, we know the general public wants to be on the right side. They want to be over here where we're coexisting with bears. But it's very expensive and it has a lot of personal cost, and we just have not got to the point yet where people are willing to take that on. And with that, I'll take questions.
Thank you very much, Dan and Janelle. Any questions from the commission? I'd just like to point out to the public that, you know, this agency has been tasked with developing wildlife for the benefit of all Tennesseans. Now we've got a pro-growth state, which is wonderful, but our human bear contact comes at a cost. And you've got to ask, does the agency have the capacity to take care of everything that comes up between human beings and wildlife? And capacity means more funding. So these employees have done a wonderful job working overtime to make sure that they educate the public on this, but this will just continue to get worse. And the agency is often the one that people call to handle all these issues.